let's talk about Persona 5's postgame. Alright, that about covers it. Okay, to be fair, a 100+ hour game doesn't really need a postgame, but why not at least let us enjoy the existing content? Most people who don't use a guide, and don't realize how stupidly broken Chihaya is early enough, aren't going to get through all the game's content before the final dungeon, so why not let them do it in postgame? As for how, I would probably just let you loop the last normal week. Upon loading clear data, put the player back on December 11th. Set it so that the final palace has already been cleared. Leave your progress, levels, persona, social stats, confidants, etc. as it was when you beat the game, and let you play through December 17th. When you go to bed on the 17th, give an option to either go back to the 11th or proceed to the 24th if you want to replay the final dungeon. And hell, if they're feeling generous, it shouldn't be too tough to add a new path or two to mementos in the post-game and throw in a few extra targets to fight. New content aside though, I don't think this post-game time loop would be very hard to do implementation-wise, so why is it not a thing? Only reason I can think of, beyond laziness, is that they don't want people to be able to see content they didn't get to within the game's time limit, like you're being punished for failing to manage your time better. I mean, I guess there are some arguments for that, but I don't find them very compelling. The best of them as far as I'm aware is that if you can just do all of it in the post-game, why even bother managing your time? Part of me wants to dismiss this argument as stupid. I mean, if the game's time management is interesting and engaging, then people should be doing it for its own sake. And if it's not interesting and engaging, then why are we trying to force people to do it? Unfortunately, people aren't that logical, and will often take the path of least effort, even to the detriment of their own enjoyment. As such, there is an argument to be made for the need for incentives. Also, I already went over my thoughts on Persona 5's time management in the socializing video, but for the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to assume that the time management is interesting and engaging, and thus something we want to incentivize. Successful or not, that's no doubt the developer's goal, and so other design choices should be based on the assumption that they're successful. That said, I still disagree with this argument, at least in regards to Persona 5. Or rather, I think there's enough incentive to manage your time efficiently, even if you can finish all your confidants during the aforesuggested time loop. This is because a lot of the rewards you get from time management are in-game benefits. Sure, you lose the incentive of being able to see the confidant events, as you'll be able to do that eventually anyway, and without having to play the whole game a second time, or going to YouTube. However, you'll still have the incentive of having the confidant abilities and bonus fusion experience sooner, and those are some pretty substantial benefits. Still, if you want a little extra incentive for managing your time efficiently, I'd be all for using trophies for it. Like, you can only unlock time management related trophies before beating the final boss. Trophies have no value beyond bragging rights, so they're a perfect candidate for incentivizing things like this in my opinion. Of course, if the devs really wanted trophies to feel meaningful, they'd have disabled them for New Game Plus. As it is, the only real barrier to time management trophies is a willingness to cheese the game in a second playthrough. Not exactly something I'd consider worthy of bragging. Personally, I think trophies should be disabled on a New Game Plus with things carried over. Then again, I really don't give a shit about trophies, so I'm not going to be bothered to defend that position. Anyway, that's the decent argument. Now let's take a look at a bad one. I've seen some argue something like, those people didn't earn the right to see the content they didn't get to. Sure, they bought the game and spent 100 hours or so playing it, but they didn't use a guide on their first playthrough to ensure they could see everything, so fuck them, right? Honestly, I don't think this argument even needs to be seriously addressed, so I'll just move on. The last and probably most common argument that I see for this is that we need those things we don't make it to in the first playthrough to give the game replay value. Because if I don't want to replay a 100-hour game by virtue of it being fun, I totally want them to blackmail me into it by holding content hostage. And with a New Game Plus, you can probably cut that second playthrough down to like 50 hours. Who doesn't love going through 50 hours of shit you've already done to get a couple hours worth of new content? And yes, I feel the same way about the New Game Plus exclusive boss fight. Do the developers think they're getting paid by the playthrough? I just don't fucking understand the purpose of locking away content like this. I hope the thought is something like, this'll be a nice little treat for people who choose to play the game a second time. At least those are admirable intentions, but I still feel like it'd be better to just let everyone enjoy that little treat. And if you do, for some reason, really want to get people to play your game more than once, there is one really good way to encourage it. Just make a fucking awesome game. And I think most of us can agree that the developers of Persona 5 did a pretty damn good job of that. But if the game's good enough on its own, why the other annoying incentives? There is one way, though, that I wish they had done a better job of providing replay value, and that's in the New Game Plus options. It's cool that they have a New Game Plus, and it's serviceable, I suppose, but why the lack of options? At least they give the option to carry over nothing but still have the New Game Plus exclusive content available, but why not allow some fine tuning? What if I don't want to trivialize the social game by carrying over my social stats, but I do want to carry over my compendium because I put a lot of work towards filling it and want to finish off that trophy during this playthrough? Guess I'm just fucked. Really, I see no reason not to let me choose which things I carry over. This isn't a new concept either, so I won't bother going into it any deeper, but it really should be in Persona 5. I also wanted to say that adding New Game Plus options to make the game more challenging would be welcome. For instance, I love the double damage option in Tales of Exilia, which doubles damage both dealt and received. But then I realized that suggestion goes against everything I just finished saying. In fact, my first playthrough of Exilia wasn't as good as it could have been because even on the hardest allowed difficulty, the majority of the game was disappointingly easy. So, while challenge options like that are great, let's keep with the theme of not walking content behind New Game Plus and just put them in the damn options menu. Which is actually kinda what they did with Persona 5's challenge difficulty. It's a free DLC for some reason, but once you have it, you can set it in the options menu whenever you want. However, given that it's the same as hard difficulty, except for triple damage on crits and weaknesses and significantly reduced money and experience multipliers, I would have preferred these three things each be their own options. Personally, I might be interested in turning on the triple damage thing, but I'm not too big on the reward reductions. Still, cool that they added it for those who would enjoy the extra challenge. Not all New Game Plus exclusive challenges are bad though. If you're willing to put in the effort to make a challenge mode that only really makes sense for a New Game Plus, that can be awesome. Eternal Sonata is a great example of this sort of thing. The game's battle system starts out rather simple as not to overwhelm new players, then throughout the game you open up new aspects of the battle system, significantly increasing your party's potential. When you start a New Game Plus, they allow you to start the game with the whole battle system unlocked, and they adjusted the strength of the enemies throughout the game to compensate. This would be roughly analogous to letting you carry over all Confidant bonuses you unlocked in your first playthrough, but adjusting the strength of shadows to compensate. I would be all for this sort of New Game Plus content. Only problem is that it would require a large amount of time and effort to implement. One last suggestion for encouraging replays. I like when games present challenges to me. The easiest way to do this is via trophies. Sure, some people may not like this if it makes that platinum trophy really hard to get, but as I said earlier, I don't give a shit about trophies. Their only value is bragging rights, so they're one thing that I'm okay with being locked behind multiple playthroughs or really hard challenges. Still, if you really don't want to risk pissing off the platinum miners, you could find some other in-game means of presenting the challenges. For instance, Devil Survivor 2 gave you New Game Plus points based on titles you earned through various accomplishments. Among them were the Focus title for not doing any free battles, and the Unkillable title for not letting any party leaders die. I got both of these titles on my first play of Record Breaker, meaning no New Game Plus bonuses, and it was fun as hell. Granted, these types of challenges don't require the developer. There are challenge run ideas of this nature provided by the fans of many games, but a lot more people will see and consider them if the developer is the one suggesting it, especially if they give you some sort of in-game recognition for it. Anyway, that's all I've got on this topic. What do you think? Do you like games giving you cool challenge modes or ideas? Like them being blocked on your first playthrough? Even if the game is 100 hours long? Know any cool challenge run ideas for Persona 5? Do you feed off the delicious tears of people who didn't manage to do everything in their first playthrough? Do you appreciate the incentive to play a second time? Wish there was even more stuff exclusive to New Game Plus? Got any good reasons why? Let me know and have an awesome day. The painting of the hole in the ground in Madarami's palace is a pretty cool effect. Until you realize that no museum guest would ever see it from the angle they put the camera in. To Joker, it would've just looked like a weird ass painting on the floor. Naturally, this didn't stop Ryuji from freaking out over it.